This video is not about creating the ultimate build that will frustrate your dungeon master, make them probably want to quit, and generally ruin the game for the other players. There are already enough videos like that out there. It isn't about maximizing damage output or survivability or how to exploit a chink in the game that honestly should have been discovered in playtesting that allows you to summon 100 zombies and lead the greatest undead army the world has ever seen, all while your fellow players watch from the sideline and feel rather useless. No, this video isn't talking about your fun today, or at least what you think is fun, or what looks fun on paper, I guess, until you discover in practice that using consecration to instantly kill everything in the dungeon isn't nearly as much fun as, actually playing the game. Instead, we're going to explore how to make characters that are fun for you, but also enable greater fun for the other players and the game master. Because when fun is maximized for everyone at the game table, I think you'll find it outlives cheap thrills. Hi, I'm Lair, and on this channel, I would normally share my nearly 30 years of game master experience so that you can run amazing games that your players will love, but since this is a player-focused video, I guess I'm not really doing that today. Instead, today we're talking about how you should never make a D&D character, things you should generally avoid in character creation, and what to do instead. Now, if you're a busy dungeon master looking for pre-made resources you can use in your games, or you're a new dungeon master who has no idea how to design an adventure, I think you're gonna love Layers and Legends and Loot and Lore. My team and I packed these two books with over 700 pages of 5th edition adventures, monsters, encounters, traps, puzzles, NPCs, spells, subclasses, and more. And check this out. All of the adventures contain GM notes, adventure hooks, read aloud text, role-playing notes, encounter notes, detailed maps, everything you need to play. Pick up Layers and Legends and Loot and Lore at the link below. Don't spend another moment scrambling to prep your next game or worrying if your game is good enough. Number 1, never be a blacksmith, or a farmer, or a lawyer, or a shopkeeper, or, well, anyone who's not an adventurer. This point could also be restated as don't be useless. At least, in the context of a D&D game where your role is to delve into dungeons and other dangerous places, and your skill with a sword or a wand or a holy symbol or thieves' tools will mean the difference between life and death. However, of course, you're not one of those things because the player's handbook forces you to pick a class that builds in at least some semblance of utility. So, unless you totally blow it, chances are you're going to be more competent than a farmer with a hoe or a shopkeeper with a shotgun. No, wait, scratch that last one. Let's go with lawyer with a briefcase instead. At least, in the context of zombies and horrible monsters that want to eat your faces. I'm not saying lawyers aren't useful and have their place. I have a lawyer on, retainer, not retainer. I don't know, I pay a lawyer. Let's just keep moving. My lawyer is gonna serve me notice. He's no longer my lawyer anymore. Yay! But having a class and some starting equipment, the D&D equivalent of drawing breath, doesn't mean you're not useless. You see, a good character fulfills a valuable role for the team. So if the group already has 3 rogues, are you sure they need a 4th? Sure, rogues are the trappers and life expectancy may be rather short, but remember, this is D&D 5th edition. The chances of 1 rogue, let alone 3 dying, is almost non-existent. Of course, if you're playing Shadow Dark or Pathfinder 2, yeah, maybe you do need some redundancy. My point here is that the decision of which class you play shouldn't be made in a vacuum. Instead, discuss your character ideas with your fellow players and work together to assemble a party of characters collaboratively. When players talk with each other and create characters as a team, I think you'll find that overall game enjoyability for everyone increases. Some other considerations. Don't force a player to fill the same role, such as the often despised role of healer, over and over again unless they really want to. Furthermore, would it kill you to offer to fill a role that the other players don't want to fill? Look, healers aren't that bad. Trust me, when you have the barbarian, paladin, wizard, and rogue all practically begging you for heals, there is no greater sense of superiority, which, by the way, can be leveraged into infernal pacts and contracts of all sorts. Creating characters collaboratively doesn't mean, of course, that you can't have secrets or details about your character that make them interesting for you to play. My friend Joe is a cleric tank in our Pathfinder 2 game, and the 2 spells he uses the most are Heal and Thorns. The latter, by the way, is a real gem. I really despise it as the game master. He mostly strides into melee, casts Thorns, and gets the living snot beat out of him, heals himself, gets the crap beat out of him, goes down, gets up, gets beat up, heals himself, and just kind of rinses and repeats this entire cycle over and over again. He's like the group's kicking bag, basically, for the enemies kicking him, right? The group doesn't, you got me. But the way he role plays his character's personality and what he says, things that often leave the entire table dying with laughter and unable to breathe, seem to be part of what he enjoys the most. Number 2, don't be an edgelord loner. Almost everyone hates the loner, let's face it. The player who at every opportunity sneaks off on his own to play his own private game of D&D that none of the other players are invited to. The other players, instead of playing, are sidelined and must wait for the loner and the game master to play out whatever is going on over there. Meanwhile, the game master is forced to run 2 games instead of 1, and the competent game master will make a point to swap back and forth between what the loner is doing and what the other players are doing so that both narratives are progressing. All around, this creates undue stress and extra work for the GM and results in a less enjoyable game for most of the players. Now, if you want to play a character with a dark, complex backstory filled with tragedy and betrayal, please do. This can provide a great opportunity for rich role-playing. However, don't do it just because you want to stand out in the group, steal the spotlight for yourself, or test the boundaries of what the dungeon master and other players are willing to tolerate. It's important to remember that we're playing a group game, all of us together at the same table. Your character creation and role-playing decisions should take the group into consideration. I tend to be a very chaotic player, a chaos gremlin, as they call them, and want to do any number of ill-advised things during a game. However, if I allow my personal whims full reign, I'll be crapping all over everyone else's game. So when I'm a player, I must always remind myself to try to keep my base impulses under control. Remember, your fun is important, but so is everyone else's. Number 3, don't be a pacifist, or a murder hobo, or the bard who turns every social interaction into 2 hours of talkie-talkie while everyone else falls asleep at the table. Of course, any of these choices might be perfectly fine in the right group with the right play style, and that's what my point is really. Know your group's play style and make your character appropriately. If the group is combat focused and you'll be delving into a dungeon your game master has warned you will be full of dangerous baddies, don't make a pacifist or a character who wants to turn every encounter into a social challenge. If the group loves the talkie-talkie bits of the game, don't make a combat monster that has no value in social interactions and just wants to bear steel and trade blows at the first sign of a monster. If the group wants to make a bunch of super stealthy characters because you're running an espionage campaign, don't make a heavily armored noise machine, you know, a paladin. But what if you don't want to play the game that everyone else wants to play? Well, that's the beauty of the thing. There are so many games out there, you can probably find the one you're looking for. Hop on sites like Start Playing or check out the LFG channel on my Discord and start your own game and be the game master. Run the exact type of game you want. Number 4, everyone hates the comedian. At least in a game that's supposed to be dark and gritty. Nothing ruins the moment as much as a silly quip when a xenomorph is about to eat your face off in a game of Mothership. Or maybe silly quips in the face of overwhelming odds and certain death is exactly what makes the moment in your game. Some games are serious, others are 1,000 laughs a minute, and yet others are both or neither. The question is, what is the tone of the game, and how can you make a character that fits that tone? Many times you can sense what the tone of a game is intended to be, but if it's ever in question, you can just ask. Ask the game master, ask the players. What tone are we trying to hit here, guys? Am I ruining the moment every time I blow kisses at the xenomorph that just killed one of your characters? And when in doubt, you can't go wrong with leaning toward the core tone instead of diverging from it. If your game master is going for a tense, horror atmosphere where characters are likely to die, and you're not sure if a happy-go-lucky gnome barbarian who rages because she's ticklish will fit in or not, err toward not, at least in this case. Number 5, don't be a druid. If the game is going to take place in a massive cosmopolitan city, especially if your druid prefers animals to people and despises civilization. If the game focuses on eldritch horror and preventing the looming end of the world, perhaps you shouldn't make a character that serves the Great Old One. And before you make a character that specializes in fighting undead, perhaps you should make sure the GM plans to use undead as a major part of the campaign. My point here, besides crapping on druids, warlocks, and vampire hunters, is that you should consider the theme of the campaign and create a character based on that information. Your game master probably won't give you too many specifics about the campaign lest they spoil things, but they should be able to give you high-level information to inform character creation decisions. By the way, you may be noticing a theme to many of my points thus far. Don't create a character in isolation. Instead, compare with your fellow players and game master. When you work together, even in a minor way, the game is improved for everyone. Number 6. Don't sacrifice yourself. With all this talk about other people and the group and the game master, you might think I'm telling you that what you want to do is unimportant, and it's not. Just as much as I tell dungeon masters to only run games they want to run and what they will find enjoyable, you should only play a character that you'll have fun playing. Yes, you'll want to consider everything that we've already discussed, but if you do all that and hate your character and hate playing the game, then nobody wins. The trick is finding the sweet middle ground where both you and everyone else can be happy. Of course, the possibility exists that that middle ground doesn't exist. What you want to do just doesn't work with the group or the campaign the game master is running. I mean, it happens. Don't feel bad. And if it happens, I suggest trying to find a more suitable game instead of trying to force the proverbial round peg into a square hole. Number 7, never create a character backstory just for yourself. In fact, if you want to know how to never create a backstory and what to do instead, check out this video right here. And don't forget to pick up Lairs and Legends at the link below. Get over 700 pages of D&D 5th edition resources for your games. And until next time, happy game mastering.